Crows Club presents B-Side Breakdown.
Hey everyone, welcome to the B-Side Breakdown. My name is Brett Johnson and I am your host. This is episode 37 of a podcast where I talk with other artists, musicians, and songwriters about a song they've written that's meaningful to them, that they can give me permission to play the song in its entirety in this episode for you. So then after you hear it, we can chat about it and then you have some idea what we're talking about. Today I'm going to be talking with Carl Skildum from the band Skjolden about his song While Dying. Skjolden is a one-man project that Carl's put together and it's fantastic and I can't wait for you to hear it. So let's get into it. Here is While Dying by Skjolden. All right, and that was While Dying by Skjolden. We're going to take a quick break and come back and talk with Carl Skildum about the band and the record and everything that he's got going on. So stay with us and we'll be right back. Hey again, it's Brett from the B-Side Breakdown. Real quick, if you're digging this podcast and want to hear episodes without the ads, you can join our supporters tier called Down for the Cause over on Patreon. It's $5 a month. You get all of the episodes ad-free. You get them in advance before they're published, and you help keep this whole labor of love alive. That's at patreon.com/B-Side Breakdown. All right, we'll be back in just a minute. All right, and we're back. Let's bring in Carl to talk about the song While Dying from his project Skjolden. Hey, Carl, thank you so much for taking some time today to talk with me about the song, the band, and everything you're working on.
Yeah, thanks, Brett. Glad to be here.
Absolutely, man. It's been a long time. I mean, I've known you for a long time, and I've on the cursory followed a lot of the different things that you've done artistically and musically, creatively over the years. And when this came across my band camp, and I was like, oh man, I got to get this. I mean, I immediately got the record and I really dug it. But also, since we've just played kind of While Dying for everybody, and I know that's the one you wanted to talk about, tell me about what is it about that particular song that you wanted to speak to?
Well, it's the concept of this song comes from it's very present in the way I feel a lot of the time, day to day, and it's really about for me, how do I want to spend my time, knowing that it's not infinite. I'm as you know, I've been around a little while, and I've seen recently some of my friends, I think some of your friends, and
Mm-hmm.
certainly people that we both know and respect and love in our friendship circle and music scene that have passed away early, way too early.
Right.
And so I've been thinking about that a lot. So not to be too morbid, I'm not, fortunately I don't have anything that I'm staring down, anything horrific in my own life, but I still think about it in that, how much time do I really have left? And certainly with respect to playing this kind of music, um, it's very demanding physically to
Mm-hmm.
to play this kind of stuff. And I recognize that it's sort of a conundrum. I feel like I've never been able to better express myself as a guitarist. And in other ways too, learning how to do vocals and produce my own music. So that's exciting, but I also know that there's a sort of a time box around all of this, and that at some point I'm going to slow down and have to switch gears. And so I feel like what I'm trying to do right now, and the reason I have four active bands, is I'm trying to do as much as I can while I can still perform at this type of level.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to I don't want to miss any time or miss any opportunities to kind of chase this muse that I've really loved this kind of music since I was a kid. So it's a thrill to be able to have all these slightly different venues to to play this kind of music. And so going back to the concept of this song is I think that I think about how I spend my week, which is a pretty high stress, professional type of white collar job, and um, it's been rewarding, but it's also really starting to grind me down a little bit, and certainly I can see how this type of work can grind a lot of my peers down as well. And so
Sure.
I just think it's to a certain extent, I'm struggling with what do I want my life to be, after 30 plus years in a corporate life,
Yep.
and where do I want to focus my time? And so that's been at the front of my mind. And so this song, I think, is me kind of wrestling with that because, um, there, like I said, there are people who haven't had the luxury of being able to have that decision. I mean, it's been kind of taken
Yeah.
from them.
Right.
Something comes health wise and takes you it takes your choice away. So I think about that a lot, and so that's what sort of drove the concept of this. And I think about how I don't want to have that type of regret hanging over me. And so that's where the title comes from, is these aren't the things that I want to be thinking about when my time comes. And I know this sounds so morbid, but it's really it's really meant to be I don't know. I mean it to be encouraging in a way that I'm trying to center myself on what matters, and it's my friends and my family and my wife and my dog and the music and art that I love, and maybe not so much focused on chasing some sort of perceived corporate escalation. I don't know if that's the right word, but
I'm so intimately familiar with what you're talking about, and I'm just so grateful that you put it out there just like you did. Um, I don't feel like that's morbid at all. I mean, really, I think that's inspiring. I think it's invigorating. I think um, it's just it's perfectly stated at the right time. I mean, for me in my life, in my journey, I'm in a similar spot where I mean, I'm actively at a precipice where I'm about to say, you know, that corporate handcuffed job that I got, I don't think that I can do that anymore. And even the way you said the regret part, like that to me, like I don't want to be thinking about these things that I regret while dying, I think is how you said that. And for
yeah,
me, that's exactly the conversation I had with a different musician friend of mine about a year ago when I'm wrestling with the fact of, what am I doing? I feel like I'm working to save money so I can, as another friend said, spend it all on health care when I retire. It's like, wait a minute, is that, and I'm doing something I don't actually care about. There's something wrong here. And for me, I've taken a massive leap of faith into fear and jumping into that void of ensuring I don't have that regret, because that was the thing he asked me. He was like, "So, if you don't do this, what are you going to regret in your deathbed?" And I was like, "Man, that was exactly what I needed to hear, because for me it is that if I don't do it now, if not now, when?" And to me that's right or wrong, that's how what you just said hit me. And to me that I think is beautiful. Like I think that's awesome.
yeah. Thank you. That means a lot to hear, and I I hope eh, I hope that this resonates in some way. That's always been a goal of mine with the lyrics I write, at least when it from a personal perspective. If I'm
Sure.
writing for Antiverse, that's all sci-fi horror, and
Right.
that's a different kind of fun to write for. But
Yeah.
this is the first solo project I've ever attempted, so I wanted to speak about things that are real to me, and this is I've been feeling this way for a while, and
Sure.
um uh, for a long time. I felt like my career was a mission, and I was pleased with it, and to a certain extent I still feel like that, but um the pendulum has swung away from me feeling as if I'm making a difference, and into more of just how can I withstand this for a little bit longer? How can I endure this? Because it's not that it's and I always keep this in mind. It's not like I'm doing something that's physically punishing or
Sure.
demeaning. And so I want to make sure that I'm not trying to create a sob story about how, oh, woe is me, but there's so much emotional labor and um, carrying stress, and that
Yeah.
I do know that takes a toll on the body as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I've seen it for myself. I've had a couple cases where I've had um, health issues, physical health issues that stem from stress, and it's been work related, and 100% of the time. So
No.
I
Oh, go ahead.
yeah. Oh no, I just think why do we do this to ourselves, and what are we chasing? And I think about
Yeah.
that from the perspective of this song, is that what really matters is it's not chasing after something material. It's who and what we love that matters. And so that's how I'm trying to frame up how I think about my own life right now and where I'm pouring my energy, and certainly that informed the lyrics for this song.
No, certainly. And just to kind of echo some of that back to you, right? Recently, or I suppose, I don't know, several months ago, like this time last year, it was probably a year ago when I had my, last physical. And not to go down the medical trail, but it was one of those things where my stress level from work was through the roof. And all of a sudden, like my blood pressure is just ridiculously high. And that's abnormal for me. I run 5 days a week. I take really good care of myself. It's like, why am I having this kind of thing? And my doctor just straight up said, your day job will kill you. I was like, yeah, that's kind of well said because of that stress and all that. But I hear you. I mean, yeah, that all resonates with me just on a deeper level. And for me, I was wondering the same kind of thing. And also, to your point, I'm grateful to hear that you've also, you know, and there's parts of your journey through this that you have embraced and that you feel good about, and that you've liked what you've pursued and what you've done in those parts of it. And but I certainly understand the point that you're talking about now, where you arrived. So shifting gears, I mean, focusing in on, I got so many questions for you, man. Like I didn't know, one, that the depth of all of this that you can do. So it's really fun to hear you say about, you're talking about, and I forget the words you just used and how you described it, but basically learning how to do your own production, but then learning how to, be your own vocalist, and all of those kind of elements to it. What, and I just got to call this out really quick. On Bandcamp, you have the greatest blurb: "A Solitary Folly by CS, composition, performance, mixing, mastering committed by CS. Therefore, all blame for this outrage shall be heaped upon him." That is so awesome, and I love that. But tell me about your process in this. Like, where did this start as one of the four main projects that you're in? How long ago did you start working on this record?
I would say it was almost exactly a year ago today, very close to that I probably sat down and started recording the first song. And it really started because I had finished tracking for two other albums I'm working on for one's a new Antiverse record and one is a new Majesties record. And in this at this time last summer, I'd finished, at least so I thought, I was done with everything.
Hmm.
And the rest of the band members, all the people I play with, are mostly out of state. So we have to be really planful about our events, that projects that we work on and when we get together. And I had reached a point where I was going to have nothing on my calendar for at least 6 months, while my other bandmates were out on tour or playing regional gigs with other projects. I mean, everyone's in, two or three
Of
plus
course.
bands. So
Right.
um, and some of the guys I play with are in touring bands where
Sure.
they're on the road. So that was the last half of 2024. So just felt like this is a good time for me to write some stuff. It didn't make sense for me to stack up a bunch of new material against my long suffering friend Matt Kirkwald, who's in almost all the other bands except for this one. I
Sure.
didn't want to throw another album at him and say, "Hey, stack this up behind the other, two records you've also got to work on." So, I just thought, well, I'll just see what I can do for funsies,
Yeah.
to write and record and actually take the mix and master to the best outcome I could. Um, so that was really the idea, just more about, okay, I'm gonna just do this all at home with all the gear I have, which isn't much. It's pretty basic, but it's enough to get the work done. And that was really it. It came together so quickly. All of it was written and recorded in just a couple months, and that was just sort of, every day after work I'd go in and chip away at, a minute or so of the record, and get it nice and cleaned up, and then
Yeah.
next day, and that really didn't take very long at all. The most time consuming was the figuring out some of the audio questions that I had, and a lot of that was just YouTube University, um,
Sure, sure, sure.
and then just sitting on it for a little while and letting it letting it rest, taking some time off, and seeing what if I still felt the same way about it after completing it. That I gave myself about 2 months of just stepping away from it and then coming back with fresh ears. So it was the fastest thing that I've ever done. But
Ah, that's inspiring to hear. And so with that, is it always do you always start with guitar, or in this instrumentation are you programming drums? Are you playing drums? Did you program tracks and then give it to a drummer to say, "Hey, just play these drums like exactly"? How did you do the drums and all that?
yeah, so I'll usually start with it is program drums. So
Okay.
just to be upfront on that, I know
Sure.
there's a lot of people who have strong feelings on that. And what I do is it is session drummers on E-kit. So that's why it sounds like a human being playing it, because it was, but was not an acoustic kit, and it's multiple session people, and I do edit it to fit what I'm doing. So it's not just I'm dropping in beats and just going on it. So that's really
Sure.
how it starts. But yeah, I just basically will start with guitar. And the way I did this one was it's four different rhythm guitar tracks at all times. So that was fun, is to kind of figure out how do I
That's
do,
cool.
and it's meant to be impractical to play live. I don't intend to play this music live. It's
Yeah.
but but it is this is there's four separate guitar tracks, and a lot of times they're doing different things, and sometimes they'll come together to do the same thing, but mostly it's different. And then I'll just go back and track bass,
Sure.
and then vocals, and then the mix process is kind of how I approach it. It wasn't that much more complicated than that.
Got it. So are there keys in there too? Like I thought I heard
Yeah,
some sort of okay, and
yeah,
you're doing that as well.
yep,
Is that you playing the keys?
yeah.
Like are you an avid keyboard player, or is it kind of how do you approach that?
I'd say I'm a lapsed keyboard player, and
Okay, fair.
it was really the first instrument I played, even before guitar
Sure.
was piano. Um,
Yep.
so I have a an analog keyboard that I busted out for a couple things, and then I used some yeah, I guess software instrument keyboards as
Sure.
well. But I played all the stuff. So don't ask me how many times I had to do it, but
That's sure.
um, but I did play it on my did dust off the ivories, so to
Yeah.
speak.
No, and that's my kind of story and journey as well. I started on piano originally before I played anything else. So I I like how you put that elapsed, because yeah, that's exactly me too. I can still play some of the stuff I used to play in fifth grade, and beyond that, it's like, well, yeah, I focused on guitar or bass.
Yeah.
No, that's cool, man. I really like it. And so where I'm gonna I don't want to take a stab, but I probably have a guess at the name and the background. But tell me about it. So why Skjolden? Is that ancestral? Is there a tie to that region specifically in Norway, or is that the proper spelling of your last name in a different context, or what is it?
Yeah, that's where my ancestor, who came from Norway, was Skjolden. It's a small town on a beautiful fjord,
Hmm.
and the name means the shield. And it's kind of funny for me, because I grew up with a completely different understanding of what my last name was, and I think there was sort of a family tall tale about what, when I was a kid, I asked my parents, what does my last name mean? And what Skildum, because there really aren't a lot of people with that last name anywhere. And everyone who's got that in the Twin Cities, Minnesota area, have they're all relatives at some
Right.
level.
Sure.
So this guy came over from Norway, and in immigration, somehow the name Skjolden, well, I don't know if it was too much for the whoever did the paperwork, but it got mistranslated as Skildum, and that became this guy's American last name. So I think of it now is that's, my that's really probably what my real family last name would have been had that mistranslation not happened.
Yeah.
Um, but it did. So, and I only realized this, a little bit later in life. Like I go back to that question I asked my parents, what does Skjolden mean? And I was told something about, oh, it means a little house on the corner. Well, that was a mythology that was invented by my own family who had a little house on the corner. So it's just sort of
Got
kind of
it.
made me think about, all these stories we tell ourselves about who we are and where we came from. And so I thought it'd be fun to use that name for this project. And miraculously, I do not see that anyone has ever used it before. So
No, that's great.
lucky
That,
me.
yeah, right. Lucky you. That's awesome. And so where I've always been interested in all of your bands that I've been watching and following and on the cursory hearing about. And I think the last time I saw you was actually when you were performing at 7th Street Entry, and I don't remember the name of the band, but it had to be a decade ago. Um, but the artwork is always just amazing. And so I'm interested in the visual art side of it. Do you have a vision or a voice that you translate or share, like from a conceptual perspective, with the visual artists that you get, or is it, hey, listen to the record and create something visually for me that you think represents it, or what's the process there?
Yeah, and in almost everything that I do, and I've in the last decade plus, particularly in heavy metal,
Hmm.
I think about one of the reasons that I like to make records is to have the excuse to hire an artist that I admire
Love it.
to design something cool. So I've kind of rattled through a bunch of my favorite cover artists already. I've worked with Par Olufsen and Adam Burke for Antiverse. Um, Brooks Wilson did two of the Inexorum covers, and I'm looking at another one that's on my wall for the next Antiverse, and I can't announce it yet because it's supposed to be a secret, but it's mind blowing. I can't I have to pinch myself every time I look at it. So I
Nice.
feel like the artwork itself is such a fun element to me of anything I do. Oh,
Hmm.
and Majesties, Juanjo Castellano is has done the first one and is working on the second one as well. So I feel really lucky to have all these cool people that I've worked with. Um, so this one was different. I wasn't sure what the visuals were going to be until after the record was done, and I just follow a lot of. I mean, I sort of stalk a lot of artists on Instagram.
Hmm.
It's a problem, but I found one of the people I follow, Mark Erskine, had posted the image that became the cover of this, and it was just this, hey, this is something I did, it's available, and I saw it, and it immediately grabbed me, and I was struggling for a little while to figure out what the visuals should look like, and it just popped, and I said, oh, I'd like to license this one. So that's how that worked. So it's the first time really I've ever picked up some pre-made art for something, but
Sure.
it hit the spot, and I couldn't be happier with what we've got.
No, that's great. And the logo design too is just gorgeous. Is that also just something that someone you love as an artist and hired
Yeah.
them to do it, kind of a thing?
Yep. Yeah, logos for me are the same thing as to me as art. They're visual representation of the project, and I love having the opportunity to chase down a different logo artist, which again I think, yeah, every logo artist I've worked with has been a different person, so I'm kind of collecting. And so this one is from Moonroot Art. I'm sure, and uh, I, he also does artwork, but in this case, I just did commission the logo from Moonroot, and then the um, license the cover image from Mark Erskine. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
thank you.
I'm glad that however that all came together. It's just it's all compelling. I love the sound of it. I love Yeah, the track itself for me is, I mean, at first, of course, it's if you don't listen to this style of metal often, it's like, oh yeah, as soon as it starts, you're like, right, like this is what we're in, and then immediately my ear kind of goes back to, I don't know how to explain that other than it's like I have to kind of almost immediately retrain myself to what I'm listening to a little
Yeah.
bit. It's like so I can really hear it and where it's not affecting me in a way where it becomes confusing because sonically I don't understand what's going on. And sometimes that happens to me with jazz and other very complex, dense stuff where I'm like, wait a minute, what am I actually listening to right now? And
It's
so
a
for
lot.
this, it is, but this was great. Like it was immediate. Like for me, it was just like this immediate, I fell right into it. And I was like, and it took me on this awesome journey and your vocals are just brutal and awesome. And it's so much fun that you're making all of that. So on the vocal side, I know that you were doing backups in Antiverse. I think initially is when I first
Yeah.
kind of witnessed you doing this vocal style live. And then as I think lineup changed, you kind of took more the front and center lead vocal part in that.
Yep.
Is that right? Okay, right.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I would just do a backup line here and there for the first lineup iteration of Antiverse, and then we
yep.
did have the lineup change and struggled with who are we going to bring in, and I think I think it was our drummer Mike who just said, why don't you two guys, being myself and Matt Kirkwald, why don't you guys do it? And I had to really go in and learn how to do it in a way that wasn't harmful to my it's like I always grew up
Yeah.
doing like the Sarge voice, which is, sort of the drill sergeant, yelling
Yep.
kind of, and using my vocal cords in a way that was just like loud
Hurtful.
speaking, hurt pain, just yeah. And so I did some jokey punk stuff where I would do that vocal, and it sounds cool listening back to it, but it just wasn't sustainable physically,
Yeah.
and that you get that whole coppery taste in your throat where you're hurting yourself, and it's just this is not going to work. So I had to learn how am I going to do this, and how am I going to sing this way and play guitar. So it was a short learning curve, but I really like it. I know how to do it consistently. For this, I tried it a little different than with Inexorum, which is where I've done the last several records of lead vocals. And I did it a little bit quieter. With Inexorum, I'm kind of going just high volume and high intensity, and I wanted this to be a little colder sounding.
Hmm.
I was trying to figure how am I going to make this different from Inexorum, which is probably the closest sibling project to this, and I did a lower volume version of that, and that really, for me, it allows me to hear some of that um, artificial distortion that you can make with this type of voice. I liked hearing that a little bit up closer, and by doing it at a lower volume, that allows that kind of rasp to come through. So
Hmm.
that was it was a conscious decision to try to make the vocal a little bit different. I'm not sure if it's that different, but I know for me, I certainly took a different approach to it.
Yeah. Well, I have a kind of a tangential question about that when it comes to performing. In general, so as when I perform, I have a problem of getting kind of too emotionally involved with what I'm doing, particularly if it's anything heavier or aggressive.
Yeah.
And somehow my body just starts to tense up while I'm so physically into this. And
Mm.
same thing will happen to me vocally. Next thing you know, I mean, I'll have problems where my hands are cramping because I can't play anymore because I've exhausted them physically basically
Yeah.
by doing this too intensely. And same thing with my voice. I'll just like end up blowing out my voice and I'm like, well, wait. But then at the same time, when I try to do this, well, no, it's always the concept of, well, play relaxed and try to do this in a relaxed way. But I'm like, I don't know how to connect the dots between feeling that intensity that happens, but trying to be relaxed with it. So I'm interested in how do you have you experienced any of that, and did you find a way to overcome it? Where, like, if you're talking about for several records, you do this, and I'm imagining you're performing often with these bands. Um, did you figure that out for yourself, or did you have any issue with that? Because some people just don't have that problem at all, and I'm super jealous that they don't. But I'm just
I,
wondering if you've come across that.
I did in my early days. I mean, the first bands the first band I was in was like a punk hardcore band, and I was just the vocalist. I didn't even play guitar at first, and I'd blow my voice out every time because I was, just full throated,
Sure,
larynx screaming with and that wasn't right. I realized how that intensity was getting put into the wrong parts of the body at that if that makes sense.
it
And
does.
I still think about that today. Uh, I I can see how that happens, but I think I've just trained it out of myself to keep to keep a focus on, when I'm talking about my guitar playing, my
Yeah.
hands, and being very mindful, even if I'm getting into it and feeling the emotion of the song. I'll let other parts of my body, like my back, and that's where a lot of that energy goes into. So that's where the movement I put into my, different parts of my body that aren't necessarily the performing parts.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's where I let that movement kind of compensate while I keep the hands and fingers limber. And if I'm doing vocals at the same time, I'm very cognizant now of not switching to that real tight larynx driven screaming, and instead keeping that, it's like you've heard, if you watch YouTube videos about it, you'll see people calling it fry screaming versus false chord screaming. And it for me, that false chord screaming is how I get my sound.
Okay.
And I can still push a lot of volume in it, but I just had to really rewire my brain to do it that way. And now that I do it, it's just kind of natural.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing all that, because I've always wondered how people transition through that in different ways. For me, it's frankly, I had to start playing almost like kind of different music for a while to
Yeah.
kind of relearn how to do some of that, where I'm singing correctly and I can play this correctly but still be right, just kind of like you were describing. But even still, whenever there's, a reunion show of an old band that I'm in, it's funny because 26-year-old me just shows up the way I did before. It doesn't matter what I learn now. Like, I just feel like I end up kind of, just going back to what I used to do, but it's still fun. No, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
you've done some reunion shows where what does that feel like to you? Do you feel like it's bringing you back to a good place, or a place where maybe it doesn't feel as good?
That's, I appreciate you asking that. For me, it always feels good when, well, okay, no, that's not exactly accurate. The music always feels good. Like when I get back into the room with everybody and we're playing music and we're revisiting these old songs, and we put together a set list that we all actually really want to play, like regardless of what we think other people want to hear or whatever, but we're just into it. That to me is the greatest feeling in the world, because I don't have a band like that anymore. And I don't have friends like that anymore regularly that I go to band practice with 3 nights a week, And so regrouping with those guys and doing that is great, because, and also I think it helps because there was never any drama or bad blood between any of us. You know what I mean? It was just life happened. So people had to do things differently, and then things fell apart, and things happen.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like anything bad or negative happened. However, the scene stuff that I'm reminded of, that's the part that feels like, oh, I feel like I'm back in high school a little bit. And I just want to avoid that. Like,
Yeah.
that's the part I just leave in the past.
Yeah.
But the music for me just feels really good, particularly some of the songs that I still really love to listen to. Like I'll just flow through some of those old tracks and go, wow, man, like I loved this record. I loved making this record. It's really fun to sing along with this again, and getting in the rooms and playing with those guys and even performing it live has just been a blast when I've been able to do it.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've
it's
been
been fun.
the only, reunion thing that I've done is Threadbare, and um I'm glad I did it, and I still love all those guys. They're, we still have an ongoing band
Yeah.
chat. Even
Oh,
though
cool.
we don't have anything, I don't think there's likely to be any future activity, but we're we've gotten over any challenges we may have had in the ancient past, but
Sure.
um, but I found, when I was in that band, I was in such a bad headspace that playing some of those songs kind of unearthed some feelings that I wasn't really wanting to revisit. Just,
Uh,
a lot of those, a lot of that was written when, I was just, all of us were just early 20s, even, just getting out of the teen angst era, and not really even out of that, and feeling, like unsure about our future and what who we were supposed to be as people. And I, that was not a healthy brain time for me. So I felt like when I revisited some of that old material, it made me feel like I was that same kid, insecure, and
oh,
so
sure.
I didn't feel great, even though I loved doing that and seeing, people reconnect with that music again.
Yep.
I walked away from it feeling like, oh man, that unearthed some feelings I thought I'd buried.
Got it. And now that you mention that, I mean, right. I think that also goes back for me to the selection specifically of the songs we want to play. I mean, because as the singer and lyricist and where I was at when I was 25, 26 years old, and what I was writing about then, and um, there's things that I'm like, can I just change the lyrics to all this? Like some of it to me, it's like I don't want to sing about this, you know. And even though the music I love in some of these songs, I'm like, ah, man, I really want to redo this, like in some different way, and just kind of borrow from my own back catalog to kind of reinvent something else out of it for the fun of it, right? Just cause, but it's and maybe dust it off with different lyrics or something. I don't know, but I went into some of that too, and I think that also just kind of drove. Um, it reminded me of, oh man, I was really passionate about this, and this, and this, and now I kind of don't care at all. Like there's some of that, or some of the things that I think I was doing was, calling people out or holding people accountable for things that weren't theirs at all. And for me, it's almost embarrassing. Like I kind of, but not really, because it's just where I was in life, and I do the best with what I got at the time I got, regardless if I have any tools in any kind of a toolbox at all. It's like I just did the best I could with what I had, and that's where it was. It doesn't excuse it. It doesn't make anything right if I harmed anyone along the way, and I certainly want to go back and clean those things up and make amends where I have to. But at the same time, yeah, I don't want to necessarily sing those songs either.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's weird to go back and revisit those younger versions of ourselves.
For sure.
I think.
Yep. No, I hear that. That was fun. Thanks for going down that road with me for a minute. That was
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Um, is there anything else specifically about While Dying or the record Insouciant Metaphysical Grandeur, because I really like to say it, that
Mhm.
you want to talk about?
Well, it's been surprising. I thought, I didn't expect it to completely disappear, but I didn't expect the level of press interest that there was. And I appreciate every time someone does take a few minutes, because I know it's work, to cover a record, or to promote something. I mean, nobody's getting paid out of this type of extreme metal, so it's a labor of love for just about everyone involved, and that includes the journalists who cover this stuff.
Sure.
And so I I've just been really surprised, and it melts my heart a little bit to hear people, who've enjoyed this, which really, I had a little bit of anxiety about putting it out. I was confident, but I also know that, hey, I've never really mixed and mastered a record before, and I know how to do a few things. I know how to talk to the folks that I've worked with before in press, and how to be respectful and appreciative of time and all of that sort of normal human stuff. But
Sure.
I wasn't, this is still a first run at doing something without, somebody to hold my hand through it. So I had a little bit of anxiety around it, but
I
I
bet.
feel like it's been a fun experience, and I'm glad I did it, and I'm sure I'll do more under this name, because it's easy and kind of nice to not have to do it in terms of a specific release schedule. If I get an idea that I want to put out as a single, I'll just do it. So
Yeah.
it's kind of nice, and it's a little bit of a different venue than some of the formalized structure around the bands that I'm in.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense, and that sounds really freeing and liberating. And just like you said, it's like, well, hey, I got this window of time. I can put out a single if I want to.
Yeah.
Like it's great that in that you've shown yourself in the world that you know how to do that and know how to do it really, really well. Like I think that is all of that is awesome. And I hear the anxiety part of that. I didn't quite do what you've done here at all, and I'm not comparing it to that, but I put out an EP where it was mostly songs that I wrote and kind of worked on it with a particular guitar player who was recording it, but it was really kind of me driving it, and I just felt super like, oh boy, as I'm putting it out there, there was some anxiety around that for me. So I mean, I think I that resonates with me a bit, but I was wondering, I had the benefit of a couple of people's ears that I trusted that I would share it with beforehand. Like, this is what I'm doing. What do you hear? And not that I'm trying to change it based on their feedback, but I know I have an intent of what I think that I'm trying to communicate here. And does that come across? Does it not? Did you do any of that with this, or did you just, you just put out these 7 tracks, you assembled it, you sequenced it, you mastered it, and you put it out?
Yeah, I did enlist a very small group of friends. Many are, in fact, all of them are musicians I've either worked with or know pretty well. So, but it was a
Sure.
small circle that heard it before it came out. And there might have been one or two tweaks based on feedback, but there really wasn't much. I wasn't asking, hey, listen to this and tell me what I'm doing wrong.
Yeah.
I went in with it just more of an approach of, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is how it's going to sound, and I hope you like it. And I think that was what gave me the feeling that, okay, it's good enough, because these are people that I trust, and
Yeah.
if there would have been a massive problem, I don't think anyone would have held back. But
Sure.
so that gave me the confidence that, yep, this is ready to go. And that's the thing with doing your own music that I wasn't anticipating is you could go forever tweaking and agonizing about it, and to get it to some sort of
Right.
state of unreachable perfection. And I know I've got friends who've done that. I've done a handful of session recordings over the last few years, and I love doing that because then I just take direction, and what am I supposed to do here? Do whatever you like, or do this particular type of guitar solo, or that. And some of it comes out very cool. Some of it has been really challenging, but most of it is still on a hard drive somewhere, unreleased. Because I think I think what happens in a lot of cases is that it it is just so intimidating to put yourself out there and to just say,
Yeah.
hey, I'm done. This is done. And it's going to go out in this format. And even though it's not exactly what I hear in my head, it's a piece of music that should go out into the world. And I think I know that's hard for a lot of people. So it's kind of a miracle that anything exists at all in art. But I
Right.
guess we just get over that fear and just kind of jump. Um,
Yep.
but yeah, it more than anything else that I've ever done, I had I had a little bit of that pit in my stomach before doing this one.
Sure. No, and commend you for your courage and following through with it because it's again, I love it and I'm grateful that you put it out there. Um, so let's do this. We're gonna take a quick break and we're gonna come back and talk to Carl about what he's working on next with maybe any of his other projects or whatever he's got going on. So hang tight, stay with us, and we'll be right back in just a second. All right, and we're back with Carl from Skjolden. And Carl, thank you so much for again for just having this chat with me and going deep into your record and your process and everything that you're doing, man. It's super fun to hear all that.
Yeah, thank you.
Um, yeah. And so I know that you said that you have 4 active bands right now, and I wondering, tell me about what's going on with Majesties.
Yeah, Majesties is kind of gearing up, getting into high gear right now. So we've been rehearsing. In fact, this last weekend, everyone was in town in Minneapolis for rehearsals. We're going to be playing at Fire in the Mountains Festival um, 2 weekends from now. So, well, basically, uh, now it's I think 10 days, maybe
Wow.
less.
Yeah.
So we are going out to and Fire in the Mountains is a festival that's existed for I think since the middle of well, I guess what the last decade was. It's not the aughts, the teens.
Sure.
But they've been around for a while, and they were operating in out of in near Jackson, Wyoming, and that location was no longer available to them, so they needed to find a new location. But a couple years ago, I played the last edition of that fest with I'm a live member of Obsequiae, and we played that last version in near Jackson Hole, and it was really probably the most incredible live experience I've ever had. It just felt magical. I mean, first of all, the scenery is beyond compare,
Right.
and but the event is so cool and well organized, and it's just people think of heavy metal and maybe have an opinion about the types of people who are drawn to it, and from what I experience at all these festivals is it's just the coolest, most friendly people you can hope to meet, and it just was really it was just a really special time, and really really grateful that I got to do that. So when the opportunity came to um, have Majesties play, we were very excited about that. And it is going to be the first live public performance for Majesties, which really started as a studio project. And the whole first record was done just with 3 people who'd worked on the music in home studios and brought it to life. But we now have a full band that can play out. It's not easy because everyone's geographically spread out. So most of
Sure.
the band is on the East Coast except for Matt and I here in the Twin Cities.
Got
So
it.
there's some logistical issues, but everyone, like I said earlier, everyone's in other bands and has done this at a level where we know how to rehearse to stem tracks and
Sure.
get ourselves sharp at home, and then so when we get together, it's productive, and we're able to really get things into what we hope is that sort of tour type approach to how things sound. And I feel like, at least after this weekend, pretty good. Hopefully I feel the same way after that first show. But yeah, we're really excited about it because they've relocated. This will be the first time that they've been in Montana, near Glacier National Park, and it's going to be at Red Eagle Campground on the Blackfeet Nation.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
so and that's going to be interesting too, because the um, one of the sponsors and guiding principles of the festival is suicide prevention, and
Hmm.
that which is a real challenging issue in many Native American communities, but particularly just wanting to make sure that as an event organization that's a front and center topic, is that we want to be able to show that there's another way, and maybe more than the sense of despair and dead end, that sometimes can be a problem in areas where there's distress and economic challenge. And so we're excited about that, and very grateful to be welcomed to the home of the Blackfeet Nation. So
Oh, that's
yeah,
awesome.
it's gonna be a fun experience. I can't wait.
Yeah.
It just feels like we've been thinking about it so long, and now to be so close,
Yeah.
it's really getting real. So very excited about it, and a lot of my favorite bands are playing. I'm really excited to see, just about every performance is going to be spectacular, I'm sure. So it's just going to be really really special again. So very very much looking forward to it.
That's awesome. And so, and this is the band's first live performance.
That's right. Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
we wanted it to be something special, and
Yeah.
Fire in the Mountains certainly is that.
Sure.
We wanted to, I think, have something that's memorable and feels like it's worth, because everyone has to fly in, and it's a lot. We put a lot into making it work as a live band. It's not easy, and this is more demanding than really about anything else that I've played in any of the other bands, and they're all demanding. So for this one to be more demanding, it's kind of ridiculous, but it's
No,
very satisfying to, it's at the point now where we're well over the learning stage, and into the, oh, this actually feels really great. So
no, that's great. And so, is that, I mean, I get that it's the first show, and I mean, just to play that festival sounds amazing, and a reason enough to do it. But is there anything else kind of happening in that space? Like, is there an event in terms of, like, I mean, you got another record coming out or something happening there?
yeah, we are close to wrapping up the second album. Drums were tracked last December, so those that's been done for a while. We spent the spring uh, touching up all the guitars, and just really wrapping everything up. Probably in the once we get done with this show, will be where everything gets buttoned up and mixed. And we're not doing that ourselves. We've got our person lined up to take us over the finish line, but artwork is done. It's amazing. Again, I'm so grateful to get the chance to work with all these cool artists. And
Yeah.
again, that's Juan Castellano. So that is it. He outdid himself again on this one. So I'm very very pleased with how it's going to come together. But I would imagine that, just given the timing of where we are in the year and how busy everybody is, it probably, I'm sure it'll be at this point, a 2026 release.
Okay. Got it. Got it. No, well, I'll look forward to that then. So more music to come. So
Yeah.
what's the best way then for anyone who's listening that's never heard of Skjolden before? How should they find you? What's the best way to stay in touch with you and Majesties and Inexorum and Antiverse? I always want to say Antiverse. Antiverse. And how should people keep in touch with you? What's the best way to find you?
Yeah, I mean, most of the other bands except for Skjolden have their own social media profiles, and so they can be found,
Okay.
on all the usual suspects. I'm not too active on X anymore, or formerly Twitter,
Sure.
for all of the reasons why most people are over that platform. But
Yep.
I dip in there every once in a while if I have to. But as far as Skjolden, I didn't create any special social media for it. People can find me, C Skildum, and that's where I post stuff about it. I don't spend a lot of time posting on social media, other than if someone follows me on Instagram, they're going to see a lot of pictures of my dog, and that's about it. So
Awesome.
it's, but they're all on all the streaming services. And
Okay.
Bandcamp has been
Yeah.
very very good to me, in terms of being just a booster. I mean, I somehow managed to get onto the front page of Bandcamp for
Yeah.
this release, which was mind-blowing and truly, a really, really great honor. So it's been pretty fun to see how that platform has enabled small artists like myself to reach a larger platform. So
Absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more. And for all your listeners that aren't aware of it, there's usually Bandcamp Fridays where if you they announce them when they have them, but if you buy artist music on that Friday, basically all the money goes to the artist. So keep
yeah,
that in mind when Bandcamp Friday comes around, and then go buy the Skjolden record and every other record that Carl has put out, because it's all amazing work. No, that's great, Carl. I'll post up links to your Bandcamp for Skjolden and like your social and some other things in the post, so people know where to find you. But it's just been so wonderful chatting with you about this, and I'm so grateful that you wanted to come on to talk about While Dying. And it's such a great song on a great record, and I look forward to seeing how the Majesties record comes out when 2026. And if you ever want to come back and talk about any other project you're working on, man, I'd love to have you back. So it's just been great catching up with you again.
awesome. Thanks so much, Brett. This has been a real treat, and it's been awesome to catch up with you again too. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
Three Crows Club presents B-side breakdown.
This is a call to action. This is a call to action.
All right, and that wraps up another episode of the B-Side Breakdown. I want to thank Carl Skildum for coming along to talk about Skjolden's track While Dying. In the background, you're hearing a song called Call to Action by the band 504 Plan. If you dig what you're hearing, please go back and listen to the previous episode, because that's what it was all about. Up next, I got a song called FTW by the band Adios Fatso, and I'll give you a taste of that at the end of this episode. I also want to thank Adam Coulong and Carrie Bozel for helping me put together the jingle you hear at the beginning and the end of this episode. Please subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and if you want to show further support, please make your way to patreon.com/B-Side Breakdown and sign up for the tier that makes the most sense for you. Appreciate anything you can do to help keep this labor of love going. You'll get ad-free episodes. I've mentioned you as a supporter and all kinds of other fun stuff. So please go check it out. Again, patreon.com/B-Side Breakdown. Thank you again for your continued support. Stay safe out there, and we'll catch up on the next one. Thanks.